Now, today's top stories and Power of 5 weather from News 5. Sponsored by Akron Children's Hospital.
Good Sunday morning, Northeast Ohio, on this 22nd of May. 30 years ago in the presidential campaign of 1992, a young James Carville was beginning to make a name for himself with the Clinton campaign as they sought to unseat George H.W. Bush. It was a campaign marked by a 4-word Carville reminder. It's the economy, stupid. Whatever other issues are at play, kitchen table concerns take precedence. It's something we saw on display this week. There are economic issues impacting Wall Street, the Federal Reserve, or Congress that most Americans are never fully aware of. Inflation, for certain, is not one of them. What you are seeing, feeling, and paying is often a precursor of what is to come.
I know gas prices are a little out of control, but the food prices are ridiculous.
For John Higgins of Cleveland, it is a question of simple math. Money coming in slower than it's going out.
The cost of living is going up quicker than than salaries, so it's hard to keep up.
The rising price of fuel is the common denominator. The higher it goes, the more you pay, and the more the movers of the products you buy pay, a cost they then pass on to you. Combating inflation involves reining in the economy on the part of the Fed, which they do by raising interest rates. It's a balancing act which impacts the market.
And really what we're seeing in, say, the markets now is testing how much that reining in is going to have an effect.
Do it too little, inflation continues to rise. Do it too much, we're looking at a recession, which many economists believe at this point is likely in some form.
It's looking more and more likely that there may be, a mild recession that will see that slow down because as the Fed tries to rein things in, essentially we're making it more expensive to borrow, to invest in capital, to produce things.
I don't like using the recession word. I think that we can continue to have a strong economy.
U.S. Secretary of Transportation Marty Walsh tells News 5 that involves continuing to address the supply chain issues, continue to create jobs, and make the most of the issues beyond the administration's control, like the war in Ukraine.
Obviously, this is something that the president has been focused on, the administration has been focused on. I think the biggest key for us right now is continue to bring those pressures down at the kitchen table for folks.
And as for your 401k, depending upon how close you are to retirement, the best advice might be for now, don't look. Well, one of the reasons I was speaking with Secretary Walsh was the fact that this week marks 6 months since the $1.2 trillion Infrastructure Act was signed into law. And to that point, it was also a year ago this week that President Biden came to Cleveland to Tri-C to tout it. Back then, the ask of Congress was $500 billion more, $1.7 trillion. The compromise bringing it down to $1.2. Still, I asked the Secretary if adding that much money to the economy right now would only add to those inflationary concerns.
I don't think so. I think the infrastructure bill, it's almost like laying down a foundation for the future to build a house on. And we're fixing roads and bridges and things that, quite honestly, that haven't been touched in decades. So I don't view it that way. And I think if we didn't make these investments in our infrastructure, our cities would be worse off for it long term.
Well, as I mentioned, today is May 22nd, and it was actually on this date, back in 1965, that the Beatles hit #1 on the Billboard charts with the single Ticket to Ride. I bring up this useless piece of musical trivia because a ticket to ride is precisely what a lot of Ohioans want the opportunity to buy as the push continues for the state to sign off on Amtrak's plan for expanded rail service, 3C plus D. My colleague Jordan Vanderberg now with the assist and the latest on where things stand.
Ohio is the country's 7th most populous state, but as far as Amtrak is concerned, it is one of the most underserved states for passenger rail. Amtrak wants to change that, and Governor DeWine has expressed interest in being along for the ride.
We're very optimistic at this news. I should say, we certainly thank the governor for taking this step.
For Stu Nicholson at All Aboard Ohio, Governor DeWine's decision to direct the Ohio Rail Development Commission to work with Amtrak to determine feasibility and cost of potential new routes is far more important than it may first appear. Amtrak has targeted the Buckeye State for significant expansion, including a route from Cleveland to Columbus and Cincy, as well as regional connections in Cleveland, essentially turning the city into a hub.
But they viewed the 3C and D corridor as a priority. They felt it is the best unserved corridor that they can see in the United States.
The Rail Commission will work with Amtrak to determine whether the routes would be feasible and at what cost. While the expansion would undoubtedly come with a significant price tag, a share of $66 billion in federal funding may make the project more likely to turn into reality.
I think it is a good sign that he shows the realization that we need to sit and have the Ohio Rail Development Commission work with Amtrak and start putting together the answers that people are going to have questions for.
And along those lines, earlier this month, I asked Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg if the governor had questions about this, what would his answer to him be?
Well, what we know is that rail creates economic opportunity and that Americans deserve high-quality passenger rail just like people have in the rest of the developed world. And frankly, America's got some catching up to do. The Midwest is a great example of a region where you got a lot of cities that are within a few hours of each other. That makes it a great candidate for enhanced rail. I hope the governor recognizes that, and I welcome the chance to talk to him about it.
And we will, of course, continue to follow the progress of this as things begin to pick up steam. With Democracy 2022, I'm John Kasich. Enjoy your Sunday.
It's cloudy and cool outside this morning, and temperatures are not going to be warming at all today. In fact, I think dropping for a period of time as a cold front moves through. Could spawn off a couple more thunder showers in the late morning and early afternoon. And the front, as I mentioned, positioned right on top of us. And so there are still a few showers just out to the west there, but we should be drying up by the early afternoon and then even getting some sunshine as we move throughout the day. So you see these couple of showers here, cool temperatures, breaks in the clouds, looking pretty good overall. It's just going to be colder than yesterday by a pretty large portion or a large margin of about 25 degrees and certainly below average as well. So for tonight, 49 degrees, mostly cloudy and chilly. Tomorrow we'll start off cloudy, crisp temperatures, clouds clearing throughout the day, and we'll start to moderate our numbers a bit. We will get into the 70s for most of this week, but it will be active during that time with the return of some showers and thunderstorms.
Sponsored by Akron Children's Hospital.